If you think I'm evil, wait until you meet some of my variants, Hello there! Welcome to Alyssa Jean's Marvel Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and I am here today to talk about Loki Season 1. Now, I'm about a month or so late on this review because I didn't have a channel, so it couldn't be helped. But just on the off chance you still haven't seen all 6 episodes of Loki, spoiler warning! Spoiler warning! You will have needed to see all 6 episodes to the end, or you will be spoiled. That is your only warning. Now, let us get into it. I'm actually going to start with how I felt about the show when I very first heard about it, compared to how I would feel about it later. When I very first heard about it, I did hear that it was going to pick up from Endgame with the version of Loki that takes the Tesseract and disappears. And I assumed at that time that it was just going to be Loki doing his normal Loki shenanigans, and maybe creating a timeline where Loki rules New York, or I don't know. And I was like 0% interested in that. I was like, that sounds dumb. Like, I don't want to see that. Then when the very first teaser trailer came out and we get our first glimpse of Owen Wilson, I think it might have been, maybe it was around the time of the investors meeting with when Kevin Feige made all those huge, ridiculous announcements about Phase 4. It was like crazy. I think it was then. We get our first glance of the TVA and Owen Wilson, and I was like, oh, it's going to be like a time travel type of thing? Yeah, okay. Well, that sounds a lot better than what I had come up with. And then, during Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they dropped the first full trailer, and I actually mentioned this in my Falcon and the Winter Soldier review because ultimately I liked the trailer to Loki better than I liked the Falcon and the Winter Soldier as a show. The Loki trailer was better than the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I was just like, I was already not excited about the Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I was less so once I saw that trailer. I was like, God, can't this show just be over now so that we can get to the good show? So I was really highly anticipating this show, and it did not disappoint me at all. So now I'm getting right to it. This is the best MCU project in Phase 4 thus far, and I would go so far as to say that it's in the upper echelon of MCU projects overall. I mean, it's not the best. There are a few, there's definitely a few, 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever that are better than it, without question. But I would put it in the above average, like upper echelon portion of the entire MCU, in my personal opinion. This show's 6 episodes were just so beautifully structured, and the pacing I thought was near perfection. Though some complained about the first 3 episodes, particularly that 3rd episode where Loki and Sylvie meet on Lamentis. I saw them all as necessary table-setting episodes. Episode 3, though not really that popular, was actually necessary to establish Sylvie as a character, and also to establish Loki's relationship to her, which was extremely important. I really kind of view this season in 2 parts. So the first part is episodes 1 through 3, which is really setting the table, establishing the setting, the situation, the characters. And then the second part, beginning with episode 4, is building toward an amazing, mind-blowing climax. And I said after episode 4, I did a discussion with Darren on D's reviews, and I said after that episode that it was my favorite episode up to that point. However, that if the show was really doing it right, it should end up being my 3rd favorite episode. That it should just keep getting better and better until the end. And in my opinion, that is exactly what happened. I would say that episode 4 was my third favorite, episode 5 my second favorite, and episode 6 my favorite. I was just completely blown away by the last 2 episodes in particular. So now I'm actually going to move next in my review to the finale. I just have to talk about that finale. Okay, so heading into the finale, everybody was wondering who is behind the TVA, who's the big bad in this show. And there were 2 prevailing theories. The first one is what it ended up being, which is Kang the Conqueror, or some version of Kang the Conqueror. And the other theory that was super popular, and the one I was actually afraid they were going to go with, which was that it was going to be a variant of Loki. And they kind of tricked you by putting footage in the trailers that didn't end up being shown. There was this footage of a quote-unquote King Loki, and many, including myself, thought that meant that we're going to see that in the finale, and it's going to be Loki as, or a Loki variant rather, as the main villain. And I really did not want that to happen. I know other people were into that idea. I was not. We've been there, done that with the evil Loki. Yeah, I get that the show is called Loki, but we've had enough Loki variants. We had a whole episode about Loki variants. Let's do something better than that. Let's set up for the future of the MCU and have King the Conqueror. I felt that if they did not do that, it would be a really seriously bad missed opportunity. Like, to just have another trite, repetitive variant of an evil Loki, which we've already seen, I would have hated it. Honestly, I'm sure it wouldn't have ruined the whole show for me. Probably still would come out feeling pretty good about the show, depending on how they did it. But I was really rooting for that not to be the case. I wanted Kang, goddammit. And so when Loki and Sylvie approach those doors and it opens up, the elevator doors open up and there is Jonathan Majors, I was like, yes! Yay! Which I think a lot of other people had that reaction, from what I can gather on YouTube and other sources that I've looked at. I think a lot of people had a similar reaction, and I was all aboard Team Kang. Which, of course, is not technically not Kang. It was He Who Remains, a variant of Kang, but it definitely is setting us up for Kang. And I think it actually has been confirmed by somebody in the know that, I think maybe Jonathan Majors himself, actually, that when we see Kang again, it's going to be completely different from the character we saw at the end of Loki, which I think is great. So this leads to a finale which ends up being very dialogue driven, and personally I think that was refreshing to not have to resort to the typical big Marvel action sequence, explosions, and even WandaVision had to do it to an extent, the big battle with Wanda and Agatha Harkness, which I didn't have any problem with, honestly, but here was still nice that they were able to pull off a finale without that. And it's funny to me that people were complaining about WandaVision, how Marvel always has to have a big action scene, and then people were complaining about the dialogue scene. And Loki, you just can't win. I don't know necessarily that it's the same people complaining about both. Probably 2 different groups of people. But for me, I thought this dialogue scene was riveting. I was at the edge of my seat all the way through. I don't understand why people complain about it being too much talking. I absolutely loved it, and 1000% it has to do with Jonathan Majors. He was freaking fantastic. And I guess, I can see the complaint that, well, our main characters didn't really do a whole lot. They just kind of nodded and said yes and asked the question every once in a while. Who cares? I actually thought they still had great character moments as well. I thought the fight that they had was very satisfying. And the line that sticks out to me, and I might be paraphrasing here, but it was when Loki says to Sylvie, because you are the one who can never trust, and I'm the one who can't be trusted. And that summed it up beautifully, and that is why there were butting heads there at the end. So I actually believe that Loki's character arc and Sylvie's character arc came to a very satisfying end for season 1. And I really, I don't actually care that for a lot of the dialogue, they were just kind of saying yes or asking questions every once in a while, because Jonathan Majors was so good, so amazing. I can't wait to see what he does with the other King variants moving forward in the MCU. Okay, I do want to talk about eventually how this ending impacts the greater MCU, but I have to talk about the characters first. I always got to talk about the characters. Characters are a big deal to me. So I already touched on a little bit Loki and Sylvie and their relationship. I thought it was very well developed all the way through from when we first meet Sylvie. And I thought episode 3 is an underrated episode. I actually enjoyed that episode for the relationship development that was happening between those two. I thought those two actors were really great together on screen. I thought they had great chemistry. And now, as for Loki's character journey, I get the complaint that it was a little rushed. His redemption this time happened pretty quickly. He just watched a scene of himself on a movie screen or whatever, and of what happened in the other timeline, and he was convinced. I mean, I get it. I had no problem with that. As I said before, I didn't need to see another evil Loki. I've said that twice now. I thought that originally we were going to see the evil Loki take the Tesseract and conquer New York or whatever, and I had no interest in that. And I had no interest in the main villain being an evil Loki. We've seen enough of that. So I can forgive them rushing the redemption arc a little bit in this one. I had no problem with it. I think at the end, Loki is very sincere, and I think it is earned. I think it's very much earned, and I love this relationship between these two. And now I have heard the take that, of course, Loki's going to love himself because he's conceited, he's arrogant. But I've also heard the take, and actually I think this take came from somebody involved with the show itself, when they did that assembled, little show that comes on Disney Plus, The Making of Loki. I can't remember who said it. I really ought to remember who says these things before I record these videos. But somebody was saying that it was about self-love. Not about him being conceited, but learning to love himself, because deep down inside he really didn't love himself. And I like that interpretation a lot better, and especially if it was coming from one of the people in the know, then it's the correct interpretation, because that's what they meant. But I like that a lot, and I think it works super duper good. And some of the other characters, Renslayer was good. She's a kind of an enigma. And we don't know where she went off to. But I like that she wasn't just a straight up villain. She was someone who really believed in her cause and just had to believe that there was a good reason for it. Mobius, of course. Wow, he was really good. That's probably the worst Owen Wilson impression of all time. I'm not usually a fan of Owen Wilson, honestly, just because the movies that he was in back in the day were it wasn't my kind of humor. Like the Ben Stiller flicks weren't my thing. Like I just never really got into them. So, in fact, I think there was a point in time where Owen Wilson was like my least favorite actor. And it's not the case. Even before this show came on, that wasn't the case anymore. I think that was way back in the day. But he's amazing in this show. And clearly we will see a version of him in season 2, and I think that's incredible. I really can't wait for that. Also, B-15, Hunter B-15, one of 2 actors who come from Lovecraft Country, Jonathan Majors, of course, being the other. she's been in other stuff too, not just Lovecraft Country. But she was great. I thought she had a very powerful arc as well. A very powerful scene between her and Sylvie when she's like, oh, I used to be happy. I looked so happy. I love her character journey as well. So I really have no complaints about the characters here. Now I want to get to back to the ending and how this may impact the greater MCU. Okay, so the first thing I need to talk about when talking about the greater implications of the MCU, I do have to point out that Loki has the most impact on the greater MCU out of all of the Disney Plus shows so far. Though I do disagree with the argument that WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier have no impact on the greater MCU, and you could just take them right on out of there and it wouldn't make any difference at all. I've heard that said, and I completely disagree with that. Even with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I didn't actually really like that much, you needed Sam and Bucky's character journeys before either of them could move forward in the MCU. I wish they did a better job of the show overall, but you needed it there, and you absolutely needed Wanda. I don't need WandaVision. I don't even know what people are talking about saying that didn't impact the greater MCU. Of course it did. It's kind of the prequel for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which Loki is as well in a different way. But Loki is more impactful because it is the creation of the multiverse. And honestly, if it had ended in with anything but the creation of the multiverse, I would have been extremely disappointed. I expected this, and I was extremely satisfied by the way that they did it. So now we have, of course, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness lurking in the background, waiting for its 2022 release, and a Spider-Man No Way Home, which is going to also feature the multiverse, whether they want to admit it or not. It's all but confirmed. We do know it is confirmed that Jamie Foxx will be Electro and Alfred Molina will be Dr. Octopus. So yeah, the multiverse is pretty much confirmed there as well. So with those kind of looming in the background, and let us not forget What If. I am very interested to see how much they tie What If into the end of Loki and the creation of the multiverse. They may not at all, and that's totally fine. But even if they don't make a direct connection in that show, I think it goes without saying that What If can't exist without the creation of the multiverse. So with all of that, in the works, they had to create the multiverse, and I was very happy with how they did it. Now, and of course, another huge implication from this show on the greater MCU is the introduction of Kang the Conqueror. There's a lot of debate on whether he will be the next Thanos or whether he will be the precursor to the next Thanos, and I could go either way on that. He could be the precursor to, say, a Doctor Doom, but I still think either way, he is going to be a pretty big deal in the MCU, and he gets his introduction on this show. We know he will be in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I can't imagine he won't be in Loki Season 2. And he may pop in every once in a while in other places, like Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Maybe he'll, make a brief cameo there. But I do think that was huge, introducing Kang in this show. Don't ever say the Disney Plus shows don't matter. They absolutely do. Now I want to get into a little bit that ending. I actually wish they had made that a post-credit scene, since they didn't actually have a post-credit scene except a mid-credit scene to tell us about Season 2 that we already knew. I think that would have made a lot of sense as a post-credit scene, but that's really my only complaint about it. I thought it was chilling. It reminded me a lot of the scene at the end of the Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes when there's the Lincoln statue that's just an ape, except done way, way, way better. I actually freaking hated that movie, and I thought that ending was dumb and made absolutely no sense whatsoever, and it was just meant to shock you. In the Planet of the Apes film, but here it reminded me of that, but done correctly. So I was left with chills. I thought it was a great ending. Now, as for what's actually happening, it's anyone's guess. There are a lot of theories. My initial thought when I watched the scene is that the TVA is simply no longer outside of time now that all of these timelines have been created, that there are now actually multiple TVAs, and then when Sylvie pushed Loki into the door, she pushed him into the wrong one. Not that this is like a Back to the Future type of scenario where the past has been changed. That's what I saw, but I could be completely wrong. I'm not completely sold on that, and I think there's a numerous amount of possible explanations for that, but that's just what I thought. Righty then, I think that's about all I have to say about the show. Let's go ahead and talk about my rating for the show. Okay, so for every review I do, I give a rating out of 10, with 1 being the worst possible score and 10 being the best possible score. So for Loki Season 1, my rating out of 10 is a 10. I absolutely love this show. It more than lived up to my expectations for it. The character journeys, the way that the show was structured, and of course that ending was extraordinarily satisfying to me. So definitely the best Phase 4 project so far out of the 4 that we have gotten. But we still have a lot more to go in this year alone. I'm very much looking forward to What If. And speaking of that, I will be doing weekly discussions on What If, live discussions with my brother Mark from Enchantment of Eternity and a rotating third guest. And our discussion for episode 1 will be on Saturday, August 14th at 5 o'clock West Coast time, where I am, and 8 o'clock if you're on the East Coast. And then from then on out, they will be on Thursdays. So episode 2 our discussion for that episode will be Thursday, August 19th at 6 West Coast, 9 East Coast. And then from there on out, that's the time, Thursdays at 6 o'clock West Coast time. Please subscribe so you can keep up with that, so that you will be able to join us. Would love to get some people in the chat for What If. Really looking forward to that. So I hope to see you there. Check out all my other reviews. Subscribe. See you soon. Goodbye.